World War II began in 1939 and ended in 1945. World War II involved a lot of countries in the world. The chief Allied powers were the United States, France, Great Britain, China, and the Soviet Union. The main Axis powers were Germany, Japan, and Italy.
At the beginning of the war, the United States wasn't involved. It wasn't until December 7, 1941, that the United States entered the war after the Japanese bombed the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor. During this attack, 2,403 Americans lost their lives and 1,178 Americans were injured. Because the United States wasn't in a state of war, the people who died or were injured were non-combatant. As you view the next few pictures of this event, write down some emotions you think people felt that day. During the war, there were struggles for both the Allied powers and the Axis powers. The Allies were victorious in Europe, but the war raged on in Japan. Let's now shift and focus on a huge turning point in the war for the United States.
The United States established the Manhattan Project in August of 1942. This was an attempt to develop the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was developed throughout the war and changed the world forever. Take a moment and ask yourself, what do I know about the atomic bomb? Now, let's learn a little bit more about how the atomic bomb played a huge role in the United States' emergence to a world power.
Let's rewind and focus on what was happening between Japan and the United States. The United States wanted to end the war and have the Japanese surrender. However, the Japanese refused to surrender. This brought into play a very complex issue that to this day is still debated. America was convinced the war would continue on for a long time, costing the U.S. not only in money, but in casualties. It was a good excuse to use their newly developed weapon, the atomic bomb. It is debated as to whether or not the U.S. really needed to use this weapon to win the war. The atomic bomb had never been used in war before the attacks in Japan.
On August 6, 1945, the first atomic bomb was dropped on an inhabited city, Hiroshima. 3 days later, the U.S. dropped a second bomb on Nagasaki. The bomb killed thousands of Japanese civilians. 5 days later, Japan surrendered and ended the war. The war ended! Take a second, ask yourself, what do you think the U.S. should have done? Should we have dropped the atomic bomb? Regardless of how we feel now about it, the atomic bomb played an essential role in America's new place as a world power.
So, let's review. World War II played a key role in propelling the United States into a world power. This came with consequences, such as using the only 2 atomic bombs to ever be set off in war. The United States may not have even entered the war if it had not been for the attacks on Pearl Harbor. You have now learned a few causes and consequences of the United States' emergence as a world leader.
Take a minute and write down how your life personally has been affected because of these events. Some things to think about are, would the U.S. be a world power without our participation in World War II and the use of the atomic bomb? Would we have the same influence in the world? After taking some time to reflect, I hope you can see how things in history affect the country we live in today.